back everyone. As you can see, we finally got the car back. Big shout out to Kyle from KR Colour for painting it. She's turned out awesome. Cannot wait to get started and show you guys, all the progress we've made and obviously the car behind us. So the videos are going to be a little bit different. Basically, I'm just going to record everything without commentary and then add the commentary later, if that makes sense. It's just a bit easier. I get a lot more done that way. And some of this stuff doesn't need like a step-by-step walkthrough, such as doing the sound deadener or even doing the wiring looms. So we'll get stuck into it. I'll show you the car first off, which is the most important part, how the paint turned out. You won't be able to see much because I did apply some tape around the car so we don't scratch it. But the engine bay is all open, so I definitely can show you that one. It's turned out a treat. Very, very happy with how that has turned out. And I'll show you basically what I'm up to. Started, pretty much finished all the sound deadener, just a few little pieces to go. We use car builder stuff, and yeah, I'll show you how to apply that one as well. So yeah, let's come have a look at the car and see how it turned out. So we did quite a lot in the sort of 5-6 months. I didn't, but Kyle did down at KR Colour. Yeah, so basically he got the engine bay soda blasted. Basically got rid of all the seam, all the rubbish that was in there that I couldn't get rid of, and then it gave him a fresh platform to start with. So I'll give you a look on that now. It's definitely turned out awesome. So this is obviously the engine bay here. To the top where the battery is, as you can see, nice and shiny, nice and smooth. So absolutely perfect. Very, very happy with how the engine bay turned out. Didn't actually expect it to turn out that good, as it was my first time ever shaving an engine bay. But yeah, we took a lot of time to do it, so it definitely was worth it. As you can see here, all the sound deadeners in the car. It's looking absolutely unreal. Very, very happy with how it turned out. Car builders make an amazing product. So what we'll do is I'll show you some clips over the past sort of 3 weeks on us putting the sound deadener in. I had some help doing it because there was so much to do, but very, very straightforward and easy. Let's get to it. So the process is quite simple with applying the sound deadener to the car. Make sure the surface is clean, create a template, and then from there, apply it. When applying the sound deadener, we used a applicable roller. Now, we purchased the car builder's sound deadener install kit, and it came with that kit. It's really, really helpful tool just to push the sound deadener into the car and sort of mold it with the body lines. So when we got up to the tunnel, it was a lot harder to do than the other components, because obviously you want to make them fit perfectly so there's no, gapping. Now, a tool used was, I'd like to call it the template, and the template was just a backing piece off a piece of sound deadener. As you can see here, I've taped down this template and sort of marked off, the ridge lines of where the body met the new sound deadener that we put in. After we marked it up, I then proceeded to cut out the template and then sort of transform that onto a piece of sound deadener. With tricky little pieces like this, it was really important you sort of measure twice, cut once, so you can see me going back and forth a couple times, making sure the template fit perfectly before I translated that piece onto the new piece of sound deadener. It was quite important during this process to obviously measure twice, cut once. As you can see, it was actually really tricky to get this to fit perfectly, so we ended up using some aluminium foil tape at the end to cover the edges where it didn't look that nice. As you can see, I'm marking out the points where I need to drill a hole or cut a hole out for the transmission mount. So after I was happy with the template that we cut, it was vital to ensure that there was no dust, so when we did apply it, it stuck nicely. After you then position the sound deadener in the correct spot, it's then time to get the roller out. After that, I basically got the other side of the roller and punched holes, or at least some indents on where I needed to cut out for the bolt holes for the transmission. Following that, I then did some more trimming and then got the foil tape out. The foil tape actually made the car look a lot better. Now, you can't get the sound deadener to perfectly line up, so this sort of filled in the gaps and made it look a lot more professional. On top of that, using the roller flattened the foil out to make it nice and smooth. It was definitely a much needed, I guess, product in the completion of doing the sound deadener. From there, it's sort of doing little bit by little bit and pre-planning on where you're going to put the sound deadener. It was quite important just to make sure it all looked uniform and nice. Some pieces were quite tricky where you couldn't put a whole sort of full sheet of sound deadener. You had to do little bit by little bit just because of the curvature of the car. To make it easier, really, it was just like I was saying before, just pre-planning it, heaps of templates, making sure they fit before you apply them. With the sound deadener, it's sort of a three-step process, as I was saying before. First off, sort of the prep and trim part, which I guess you can call the creation of the template and cleaning the applicable surface. The second step is actually checking if it will fit and cutting it out. And the third step is actually applying the sound deadener and using the roller to apply pressure to make sure it's sticking and not moving. One trick that we learnt was to do the big pieces first, such as the floor, so we were able to use the backing pieces, which we used as templates, as templates. So as you saw, it's a pretty simple process with getting the sound deadener inside the car. It just took a long period of time. It was pretty easy with the sort of template method that we used, and that was just basically the backing sheet off the sound deadener. I'm not too fussed about how heavy the car's going to be, because at the end of the day, it's not meant to be a performance car, it's just a show car. So as quiet as we can get it on the inside, the better. So yeah, it makes it a bit easier to drive. Wiring loom took pretty long, right? So it was actually quite daunting at first to sort of understand how it all worked. Basically what we did, we stripped all the existing tape / shielding off the wiring loom, rewrapped it with some nice felt tape. Anywhere where the wiring loom exited the vehicle, so for example, say all the fuel pump wiring, we actually wrapped it in a different chemical resistant tape. So obviously, it won't melt under heat or if you get some brake cleaner on it. We also had to fix up a couple of errors from the previous owner, some bad soldering. God knows how he got power for the head unit, but it was an absolute nightmare. So we fixed all that, any ends and such that were, I guess, rusted. And any electrical clips that were gone, as we just sort of replaced, sort of do it once, do it right. So I'll take you through the process on how we did that. That took about a week to do. Really couldn't care less how long it took. I just wanted to make it look nice and easy to put back in. So we'll get right into doing the electrical wiring loom now. I'll get some voice overlay on there, sort of explaining the process and how we got there and then how and why we did it. So it was time to start the Spaghetti 944 wiring loom. And boy, it was a mess when we first got it. It was all tangled and stuff because I really didn't take care of it. Probably shouldn't have just chucked it into storage, but oh well, it's too late now. So what we did first was we stripped the existing tape off the wiring loom. Now I ended up putting gloves on a bit further down the track because there was so much glue, and 40-year-old tape was quite sticky, that was for sure. Now as we stripped off the tape, or I think it was like a plastic shielding, it was important that we made the loom stay in the position that it came out of the car, and to do so we just put little strips of electrical tape on parts where a bit of wire would come out of the main loom. Now this took a long time to do, but it was vital we did this to, make sure that the loom stayed in the position that it was in. After we were relatively happy of stripping the loom, it was time to clean it. We just used brake cleaner to get all the goo off. It worked best. I tried like adhesive contact cleaner. It didn't really work, so we stick with the brake cleaner in the end. So after we were happy with how clean the loom turned out, had to make sure all the goo was gone, it was time to wrap the loom up with tape. Now as I mentioned before, we used two types of loom tape. We used a felt tape, which was for inside the car, and a chemical/solvent resistant tape for the outside of the car. Now my job was focusing mainly on the inside of the car, and Liam there, he focused on the outside of the car with the solvent tape. So we only really made one modification to the loom. This modification being adding a big, thick power cable. Now we're doing this so we can add the battery into the back of the car. We want to remove the battery out of the engine bay for obvious reasons. Will look a lot nicer in the boot and a lot cleaner. So how we're doing this is using a thick power cable and a splitter. This splitter is a power splitter, a 4-into-1. We're going to use the 4 for the relays and the power. So this part that I'm wrapping is obviously the loom part from the front to the rear. It has the tail lights and the license plate lights, for example. It was probably the nicest bit to wrap just because the thick power cable made it a lot easier and made it look a lot more aesthetic. So in total, I think we used about 20 rolls of tape, each about 25 meters long, all car builders, which is a really good product and I do recommend them. Following that, we just sort of finished that off. I'm not going to show the whole process because it's going to be a bit boring, but yeah, it ended up really nice and happy with how it looks. Here we have it. Obviously looks like an absolute spaghetti mess, but if you look a lot closer, the cable's looking a lot nicer from where it started. That's the battery cable that we're using as well. Just got basically the thickest gauge we can run from the front to the back. Okay, so that's how we did the wiring loom. Like I said, it took quite a fair amount of time, but it's sort of worth it at the end of the day, sort of leaving no stone unturned with this build to make it look as nice as possible. One thing that did help us during the process was the workshop manual. Now I got this online and printed it out at Officeworks, and basically, it shows us where the wires go and what they do, and it's really important, especially when we're putting it back in, because there were so many stripped wires and such that didn't work. So when we do put it back in, hopefully everything does work when the car is running. So that's about it for this video. Now I do apologize, and I probably already have with the lack of videos, but work and life is getting in the way with this project, which is a bit annoying, but it makes it more valuable when I can work on it. Reason being for this video format is it's just a lot easier to record everything from a third person sort of point of view, and then commentating afterwards when I do have time. It's just the time when I do have to work on this car, it's very, very limited at the moment. So moving forward, obviously the car is going to go up on the hoist. It's right behind me on the hoist. Well, not on the hoist just yet, but it will be. And we'll chuck the fuel tank in. I want to try and get this car as a roller so we can work out our wheel spec. So that's sort of the planning over the next sort of 3-4 months with the car. Work on the interior later because we don't really need to work on it straight away. Once again, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Keep in touch with our Instagram because that's sort of where all the updates will happen in terms of when the next video will come out. Thanks everyone, we'll see you in the next one.